Hello, I'm Dr. Katherine Horton. In previous videos, I outlined what capture and deep capture in organizations look like, and I also elaborated on the specific case of capture by psychopaths and how devastating it can be on a system. The question that remains open is, how does one actually recapture a system like that? And for that, you have to actually look at what happened when a system got captured. If you remember, I'll just run through it very quickly. We had the situation whereby some psychopath would be hired somewhere in the organization, and with time, this person, this could be either a psychopath or someone who's just captured, someone who maybe works for organized crime or is captured by some other means. But let's say it's an actual psychopath. This person would then climb the ranks, someone else would come in, replace him, and as a psychopath or corrupt individual climbs the ranks, he will subvert the organization below. So it will look something like this. And these will be people, either sycophants who will try to, please their boss, or these would be people who would be pressured into agreeing to whatever the captured person or the psychopath wants them to do. And this process continues as the captured individual climbs higher and higher. People would replace him, and the same thing would happen. More and more bits of the organization would gradually be subverted by this person. So before you know it, you're up against an organization that looks something like that. So the corruption higher up, due to actual personality traits like psychopathology or external corruption from organized crime, would be percolating down throughout an organization, and you would end up with a structure like that. So now the question is, what do you do with an organization like that? And it could be even worse. It could be that you have an organization or an institution that appears to be entirely captured. So a situation like that, already when the capture has reached the upper levels of management where board decisions are done, this is already a situation of deep capture here, because typically it's not just the chief of an organization, but it's also the next level down, the people who are heading individual departments who would be involved in board level decisions. So as soon as capture reaches this level here, this upper part, we can talk about deep capture. But deep capture can look like that, so that you have a captured part of an organization, a domain, a captured domain, and then a healthy domain. Or it can look even worse. It could be that with time, this corrupt individual climbs all the way to the top, and then the situation looks something like this. Let's see if I've got enough black magnets. So again, the corruption is spreading down, and bit by bit, more and more people are being influenced like that. Okay, so now I've run out of black magnets, and I also don't want to make the entire area black, because the truth is that there are very, very few organizations where capture, even deep capture, can lead to 100% capture throughout the organization. So even an incredibly captured organization like this one will always have some people who are still honest. And typically they might be an honest group, or it might be an individual. So if I swap these around, then you'll understand that these people can be spread throughout the organization. It could be in different departments, but wherever you go, there will be an intermixture of people who are part of the capture and people who are still of high integrity and are honest. And this is something to keep in mind. Now, because of the structure of an organization, there are more people at the bottom, therefore the probability that you'll find honest people is actually larger in a captured organization at the bottom than it is at the top. Simply because once capture is taking hold in an organization, the higher up you climb, the more power, the more money is accessible, and therefore the more profitable the capture is. Okay, so this is now the situation we're dealing with. Now, the question is, how do you recapture an organization like that? Because what I have shown you here, I'm not quite sure what these things actually look like to people who are colorblind, but I'm hoping that you can see that these are lighter color than these things. These are black and these are green. but you should see some light color and some dark color. The dark color is trying to indicate people who are corrupt or captured by some means. The light colors, or the green here, are people who are still of high integrity. So now let's just think through, how would you go about recapturing an organization like that? Because what I'm showing here is essentially a criminal organization. It's an organization that has either been criminal from the start because the boss always was criminal or corrupt, or it's an organization that gradually was corrupted. This could be the case for an institution that maybe started out as being something very beneficial and with time got converted into something else. But the point to make here is that it doesn't matter what sort of organization you're dealing with. It could be a court system whereby the court is undermined by organized crime. It could be a police department. It could be a company that's being subverted, infiltrated and subverted by maybe another company or by a government organization, or you name it. It doesn't matter. This is the most generic sort of template that you can have. And what is common to all of these institutions throughout the world is essentially this sort of pyramid hierarchy, where you have lots of people reporting to one person, and then these people in turn report to a person, and so on and so on. So you have this sort of tapering. You don't necessarily have to have exactly two people reporting to one person. You rarely will have that. But this is just a schematic. So there could be 5 people down here, or 15. There could be more departments up here, and so on and so on. But the general structure is the same. So using this schematic, let's now think about how would we go about recapturing an organization like that and return them to healthy functioning. So, of course, the easiest thing would be, initially, people say, let's say we've got a company that has maybe done something extremely criminal. Let's say they have, they are producing food, and they at some point, to cut costs, have decided to put something very bad into the food, some sort of additive, or replace something healthy with something really bad, and they poisoned a lot of people, something really extreme like that. If stuff like that happens, what is typically done is that the boss is sacked here and replaced with somebody else who hopefully is of high integrity. Now, already that can, if this person has a lot of power and has a very strong personality, that already can lead to the situation whereby board level decisions are made with high integrity again, and then bit by bit these people are pushed back into honesty. And once you have that, you essentially have, pressure from the top and the bottom, and a corrupt individual cannot really operate like that if the people below are honest and the people above are honest. So in this chain of command, this person sooner or later will act according to honest principles. So in this sort of setup, you can already see that bit by bit, the organization is recaptured. So at this point, it's kind of hard to do if this person doesn't know about the corruption that's going on in this quarter here. So what would happen before then is that somehow in this sort of setup, pressure from below and pressure from above is more likely to turn this person than that person here. And then bit by bit you can have the organization returning to health. And this situation, this situation here already looks a lot better than what it was before. You have healthy management, and then you've got small domains of remaining corruption in the organization. And remember, the way it came about is we had a strong personality at the top who then forced the other board members to behave honestly. And this can happen like that. And as you can see, it goes very quickly because, of course, when decisions come from the top down, all these organizations are highly efficient top down. So if recapture happens top down, as long as this person has enough power, it's the quickest way to do it. However, let's go back to the situation as it was, right? We had a situation something like this. So let me just put back the magnets. And let's go back to the very first step that we had. When the new person was flown in. So the situation was, we had a corrupt organization with just a few honest people at the bottom, right? Dealing with an organization like that is a real pain, because as soon as a customer comes up and ends up dealing with the corrupt part of the organization, anywhere here or here, it will not be working the way this person, this could be a complainant, it could be a customer, it could be anything, a patient if this is a health system, and things would not be working the way they should. Okay, and then we said, let's replace the leadership here. And I said, recapture from the top can happen as long as the chief here, the boss, has enough power and a strong enough personality to he himself solo convince the entire board to act honestly. And it can happen like that. It does happen like that. However, what happens if this is not the case? Typically, boards do not consist of just 2 people. Typically, they consist of maybe 5 people or maybe even more. So if you just replace one person, especially at the top, on paper, it looks like this person has a lot of power, but when you have to steer an organization and you have to change the direction it's heading in from corruption, which can be highly profitable and therefore, unfortunately, has high appeal, this might actually be the weakest position. Because what this person has to do is essentially turn the entire organization. It could be like trying to turn the Titanic with just a paddle. One person with a paddle. If this organization is very large, and remember, this is just a schematic, so the real organization could be very, very large, comprising thousands of people, and if they all have been captured and are working according to captured means, then one person will not necessarily have enough power to turn that around. It will be literally physically impossible, for the reasons that he might not have all the detailed information about the corruption that's going on in the organization, and because he might not simply not be listened to. If these people here at the board derive a lot of money from being corrupt, then they would rather continue doing that than to listening to one person. So what would then happen is that this person can try as much as they like, but sooner or later they will either be behind their back overruled or de facto in their face overruled, so that this honest person in the end, because of pressure, will act corruptly. This is why when you have a company that's tanking, it means it's following its own inertia downward into an actual, collapse of non-profitability. Just replacing the head usually doesn't make a big difference. Sometimes it can, as long as this head is also accompanied by a turnaround team who will then be going in at all the other levels and trying to make a change at the same time. Well, that is more like being on the Titanic. You don't just give one paddle to the captain. The captain makes commands, and meanwhile the engines are being at all levels, switched into reverse. That works. Just replacing the head doesn't work. Okay, so this is now the top-down trying to recapture, which can work as long as you have a lot of power and a high, strong personality. But in most cases, because of the laws of physics, because of the system inertia, and because of the lack of information that actually reaches the top, the lack of, I should say, accurate information, this is not always possible. So what do you do then? How do you recapture an organization? Well, what you can also do, and keep in mind that these levels in between, you have, the top can be accessed by the board, but actually these levels in between tend to be rather opaque. It's very hard, if you're not part of the organization itself, to find out who exactly is doing what. I mean, I encourage you to pick an organization, pick a company of your choice. Could be an internet company or anything else, a large organization, and try to find out who the middle managers are and who they're reporting to, and who their team members are. I think you'll find it almost, I always do, find it nigh on impossible. You can find out who the chief is, who the boss is, and that's that. And no one in between. But if you're, say, a customer, a patient, a client, someone who's actually interacting with the system, what you would typically do is you would come and talk to, say, the customer service helpline people here. usually the customer service helpline, because they are always at the front, they can't always change things, but at least they have to be polite. That's their job. So they come across as extremely pleasant. They've got very little power. So you will think, oh yes, this organization is fine. And then you would ask them to do something, they would pass it on, and then it would get blocked. Okay, and then you're stuck. Then you think, okay, this organization doesn't really work the way it should. It could be anything. It could be your local hospital who has, done something that they shouldn't have, maybe did something wrong. You're trying to complain, and you realize submitting a complaint is easy, but having something changed is very, very hard. Okay, so what do you do then? Well, what you have to do is start the very, very painful, long, drawn-out process of recapture. Okay? Recapture bottom up. Okay? And you can see that it's so much harder capturing an organization bottom up than it is top down, because essentially if you manage to recapture one person here, right, let's say you convince them that acting with integrity is really the best strategy, while you haven't really influenced anything. Their boss is just as corrupt as they've always been, plus there are all these corrupt colleagues. So you manage to turn one person, and already in this simple schematic, there are 4 people you would have to turn as well, right? So that is extremely laborious. So what do you do? Well, what you have to do when you're approaching an organization like that is that you don't do it alone. What you have to do is you have to get an entire community of people who either have similar complaints like that, are also customers who've been let down, or anything else, or patients who've been, mistreated or diagnosed wrong, or whatever it is. You have to all organize, right? And you have to together start interacting with the system. So one person goes and complains to customer services, and it goes to the next level up, which is corrupted and won't do anything, and then this person is bounced off. Well, this person goes back to the community, and then you have a discussion of who exactly screwed up. It's most likely not customer services out here, is it? Most likely it's either a doctor or some other professional, or some official inside the system who just didn't do their job properly. Well, you go back to that person, to exactly that very precise person, and you tell them, please, can you sort it out? Not customer services, you directly. If they refuse, then the entire group joins, and if this person is turned away and says, no, sorry, can't be done, the next person comes and says, sorry, can you do it for me? Because I've got the same problem. And this person says, no, sorry, can't be done. Okay, and you continue. The next person goes up. Can you do it for me? And if you keep doing that, you have a lot of ammunition here, a large group of people. Even if people get turned away, you continue doing this. And what will happen? This would not work if we were dealing with computer systems or engineering systems. If one part is faulty, that's it, it's faulty. There's nothing you can do unless you go in and repair. Now, we're not dealing with actual computing systems or engineering systems here. We're dealing with human systems. And every single time you have an interaction with a human being, it leaves a trace. And direct interactions by another human are extremely powerful. This is what you have to keep in mind. And you have to keep in mind that this person's interaction with their boss might occur a lot less frequently than the interaction with a complaining customer. So if this person has a weekly meeting with their boss, say, because they're working on their own and they report once per week to their boss, which actually tends to be normal in most organizations. Sometimes it's even less frequent than that. Well, if this person gets within a week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 requests to do something, then suddenly you have the situation whereby you've got this incredible pressure from 5 people on one person being counterbalanced by one corrupt boss. Well, under so much pressure, what most human beings will tend to do is crack. Just give in. And most human beings will want to use the simplest way out. The simplest way out here is to give in and pass it on. So if this person has got the power to do something to help you so that you just stop bothering them, they will. And it is your task to precisely formulate what you want them to do. There are two things they can do. Either you have got dealings with exactly this person, let's say because you are a customer of this company or a supplier, and you're always dealing with this engineer or this, person in in purchases, and they are really not behaving the way they should. Maybe they are not paying their bills. Club together with other customers who've got exactly the same problem and say, I want you to pay my bill now. These people tend to have a lot of power, actually. So if you do that, what tends to happen is that sooner or later they will give in and they will do whatever you want them to do, just so that you leave them the hell alone, right? And then you have recaptured a small part of the system. This might not be enough. It might be that there's an entire, policy to act a certain way. Let's say not pay bills for 3 months because the company finances are not working very well. Or if these are doctors, to maybe not report, things which went wrong with the treatment and so on and so on. Well, what you do then is exactly the same. After you have forced this person under enormous pressure to give in and do something for you, you can also make them do something and pass it on. Let's say pass on the complaint to the next level up. Or just tell you who their boss is. As soon as you've got the boss's name, you can repeat the same thing, right? You can't actually maybe see them face to face. Maybe you can get hold of them on the phone. You can certainly, in most cases, email them. And then you do the same thing and you say, hang on, how can it be? So it is almost like going inside an organization, because an email will be sent straight there, right? So even though you're outside the organization, your email arrives here, and it's like having a nagging little voice and saying, why is this not working? Why is this not working? And they'll say, sorry, I can't help you. Okay, then you go away. But you have to have this group of people, and the second person, an independent case, has to come along, and you have to say, okay, but why isn't this working now? Right? And before you know it, you will have exactly the same effect. And it's entirely about I would call it the pressure cooking of a person. If you want to recapture an organization, the pressure you apply to this person only has to be larger than the pressure applied to by their boss. That's all. And given that most bosses are so busy, they only see one person maybe once per week, maybe once every 2 weeks, maybe only once per month. It's not that hard. So what you will have exactly done is you will have put this person under siege and said, why isn't this working? Now, when this person is surrounded by customer complaints and keeps getting them, and you have to make sure you do it personally. It's their job. It's their job. It's their job to sort it out, right? The easiest thing is to just give in. So this person will say, okay, I do whatever you need me to do. Okay, I'm doing it with integrity now. Just go away. All right. You've done it. You have now recaptured this. And if you keep the pressure up, now you have the email address of this person. If you keep the pressure up, then they will do whatever's in their means, because they felt the heat, to also run their department like that, so that complaints from the other strand here do not reach them. Okay? And there you are. Then you have recaptured a bit. Now, if this person can't, maybe they give you something, some little small concession, but they can't actually solve your problem, then you say, okay, well, if you can't help me, who is your boss, right? And if you've pressure cooked somebody, I promise you, they will be so glad to pass you on to their boss, because at some point they'll think, I'm not paid enough to put up with this nonsense, right? And they are more than eager. And also, this is what's inbuilt in the organization. These people have been deprived of authority by being pushed down into this hierarchy. So at some point they'll say, hey, I'm not authorized to decide this. Of course I give you the details of my boss. Please talk to my boss, right? As soon as they do that, even if they haven't helped you, right? Even if you think they're still corrupted and you're just besieging them here, and they say, hang on, please go and talk to my boss, and my boss is this person, it is already like as if they were on your side, because they have admitted that whatever they are doing is not tenable long term. So even if it doesn't look like that, after you pressure cooked somebody, it will leave an impression for life. And what you will have done is essentially turn them back into integrity, into functioning with integrity inside the organization. And then you continue. You send the emails up there, right? And once you've reached this point, the higher you climb, the more how to put it, like the higher the status of the person who you can turn back by force into integrity, the better. Because when you do the same thing, maybe the higher you get, the more customer complaints you actually need, right? Because if it's, let's say this guy is the the vice president for Europe, for a company, right? If he just gets 2 complaints for the entirety of Europe, he's not going to do anything. If he gets 200 complaints, that already jams his inbox and annoys him like hell, especially if you resend your complaints every week. Receiving 200 emails every week, at some point, you will think, okay, I either pass this on or I solve it. So, at that point, if you then force them to stop their corrupt practices, right? And you turn someone like that here. Okay, let's say they have now done what you required them to do and you all go away, right? You leave this company in peace. Okay, as soon as you've got this situation, you have one person acting with integrity again above and one person or people acting with integrity from below. So the actual corrupt mechanism has been resolved, and at this point this person turns back into integrity, and there you are. You have managed, this entire structure was corrupt before, and here in this little schematic there were 2, 4, 5 people who were corrupt before, and once you applied pressure to the chain of command, only 3 people. Even in the simple schematic, you turn 3 people, you managed to recapture 5. And you have managed to recapture an entire large part of the organization, and you managed to create an entire large domain of integrity. Okay? So, what's important in all of this is that you have to remember you're dealing with human systems. Okay? And with human systems, you have all these ways of putting pressure on humans who most of the time like to do the simplest thing that you don't have with engineering components. Okay? And that is the power of human systems. This is why they're so easy to capture, because so many people have got a tendency to become corrupt quite easily. But at the same time, they are becoming corrupt because there are all these incentives offered to them and they would like to do the simplest thing. Well, similarly, positive incentives are one thing and people respond to positive incentives quite strongly. But what they respond to even stronger is negative incentives. And having your work time turned to hell by never-ending complaints from customers is pretty stressful, because in the back of their mind, they keep thinking, oh my God, this is on my plate, I'll be blamed for it. I'll be blamed for it by management, right? So you can exert incredible pressure in every organization. And after you have turned these 3 people, look at what you've done. You have now a board that's still in deep capture, the boss is captured, this entire department is captured, but you have managed to create an entire domain counterbalancing it. So if it comes to certain decisions, and let's say this corrupt boss has to have the agreement of these 2 vice presidents, well, one vice president will be arguing for corrupt practices, another one will be arguing for practices of integrity, where he hopes he will not get the same hell raised by customers. And suddenly, if this person is listening to both equally and he has to make a decision, you have a 50-50 chance now that the boss will make decisions of high integrity again. It's not guaranteed, you haven't quite turned him back, but you have essentially turned him like half green, half black. Half captured, half potentially with integrity. So you have managed to tilt the balance already, and all you had to do is recapture 3 people, right? And this is again because of the way people reach decisions. Looking from the outside, you have a board of 3 people that's in deep capture, right? 2 people outweighing 1 person. However, if there's any decision where the boss is insecure, from his point of view, coming top down, he is now looking to 2 people. One of them is back to high integrity, one of them is still corrupt. And from his vantage point, he's hearing both points of view, ideally, right? So, with time, you can also, of course, do the same thing. And after you've recaptured this, you can also start besieging here this person with emails, with complaints from the outside. Maybe you're a shareholder and you'll literally start a shareholder revolution. You say this guy has to be removed. And it doesn't actually take that many people to raise hell. That's the key. And it doesn't matter what details or how much weight your hell raising actually has in real terms. What matters is how it comes across. If it comes across as a lot of noise, people will panic. And you have to remember that the people here at the top have got huge pay packets and absolutely fantastically large pension pots. So when they feel that their image is threatened, right, they might think, oh, at this point, it doesn't look very good what I'm doing, right? If you start doing that and this person is then facing, opposing views, with time, you will have turned this person as well, right? And once you're at the top, the process of recapture can start, right? And it will go on and on and on. And once you have a situation like that, there's no way these people will go solo and do corrupt things on their own, right? And before you know it, it will look like that. And you have recaptured the organization, right? And what you had to do to recapture the entire organization is bully, people back into honesty. And the number of people you had to bully were not the entire organization, just one chain of command to the top, comprising of 1, 2, 3, 4 people, right? That's what you had to do. And overall, when you looked from the outside, how many people are here? 2, 4, 8, 10, 14, 16, 17 people, right? Instead of having to recapture 17 people, you only had to recapture 4. Okay? That's the secret of recapture. Okay? But the key ingredient is that you do not approach it on your own. You do not approach a big organization like that on your own. And you have to think, well, if you did that, it would be like trying to turn the Titanic with just a paddle. It doesn't work. But what does work is if on the Titanic, every single person in the entire chain of command would have had a mobile phone, and you could have called not just the ship captain, but you could have started with the person in the engine room saying, put it all in reverse now, because there's an iceberg, and then you go up, you go into the next chain of command, and you send the same message to everybody, all the way to the second and first officer standing behind the captain. And you say, put the engines in reverse. By the time all of them got the message and got bombarded with your phone calls saying, put the engines in reverse, what counts for them is what they hear the most often. By the time the captain says, no, we should really go, full blast forward, and they say, no, I think we really should put the engines into reverse. Right? And that is the key. But you have to start at the bottom, raise hell, using many, many people who independently from you will raise hell about the same topic. And you have to make it absolutely clear, and the message has to be the same from everybody, what this person should do so that you stop harassing them. And this could be either do this, so, give me a refund, or finally send the products you haven't sent me, or finally, do this about my case. Or it could be pass me on to your boss. right? Give me the details of your boss. Tell me who your line manager is, and then you continue. And if you have a small group of people together, you just have to have more interactions with one person than they have with their boss per week. So if this person sees their boss once per week, you have to have customer complaints 3, ideally 5 or 10 times per week. That will do the job. If this person sees their boss only once per month, then you can do a lot less, right? You can have literally 5 complaints per month and they will start thinking about it. You just have to have the pressure applied on one person from your side to be higher than the pressure that they get from their boss. And you have to make small allowances for the fact that they want to hold on to their job and that they might accrue pension benefits and things like that. So they might have much more allegiance to the company, of course, than to you. But if you really make it clear that what they are doing with you will have consequences, long-term consequences about their reputation, about their chances to climb up in the organization, and if they get sacked, it will also affect their pension pot. Sooner or later, these people will react to that. And if you have a justified cause, and that's another thing you have to keep in mind, if your cause is justified, in the back of their minds, they know that lies or corruption can't last very long. So they will just give in. So this is now the systems analysis basics about Recapture. There's a lot more detail to that. But if you want to try that, I think this is how to do it. As I said, Recapture top down is the quickest and the easiest, as long as the person at the top has enough power and a strong enough personality. But it might be like turning the Titanic with a paddle. However, if you're recapturing bottom up, you are up against the problem that you have to go up against the hierarchy. But by the time you have recaptured people at the bottom, they are behind you, right? And then you have essentially recaptured employees. Add to that pressure from the outside impinging on one person here. So essentially you have, this crowd pressing from below onto this person, who then has to decide, am I going to give in from the pressure from below or the pressure from above? And depending on where the pressure is largest, they will just give in, right? And this is how, and once they have given in, you have essentially an even bigger triangle impinging on this person, this one person up there. You have an entire department backing you up and wanting you to just, get on with it, talk to the boss and have it off their plate. So this is the secret of Recapture. It's not as hard as it seems. I hope you found it useful. If you have any other ideas, comments, or you have experiences that you made, or you have better ideas of how to recapture, please put them into the comments, because everything that you can contribute is valuable. As I said, there's a lot more to this than what I've just presented, but this is one way to recapture an organization, bottom up. So thank you for listening, and I hope you found this useful. Bye for now.